Hey guys, let us see what is an array in Java. Let's get started. Before we seeing what is an array, let us discuss about why we need an array. Assume you need to store the 5 usernames in your program. How do you do that? So normally we create the 5 variables like string name1 equal to Krish and control D and then name2, name3, name4. But what if you need to store the 10 usernames, 50 usernames, 100 usernames? Do you create 100 variables or 50 variables each time? Isn't it tedious or even more complex? To avoid this complexity and multiple variables, we have the arrays in Java. So let's see what is an array and how to create it. Creating an array is very simple. So let's say we want to create the string array, string, then you have to use these brackets like this, then name of the array, say names equal to, you can just store the variables like this. You can open the flower brackets like this and you can save the values like Krish, Adil. So now instead of creating 5 or 4 variables, we just created only one variable and we stored all our data in it, right? So isn't it very simple? Now this is one way of creating an array. Now how to read the value of array? So reading the value of array is very simple. Simply just say s out. If you'd like to read the first value of an array, we can simply say names of 0. So now let's run this. Run main. There we go. We have the Krish. But how it is working? So what is this 0, right? Whenever we create an array with data, array will give an index to each value and index starts from 0. Here the index value for all our values are 0, 1, 2, 3. So total 4 values we have and the index always starts from 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So now what is the length of this array? So we have the 4 values stored in it. So the length will be 4. So how to get the length value? For that we can use the property called length property on array. Here we can simply say names dot length. So this is very useful property and we often use this property. Just run it. Krish and 4. Now how do you read the value of Surya? So now Surya is stored at the index 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So third index. So if you say just 3, run it. Now we get the value Surya. So the index value start from 0 and the last index of an array will be one number less than the length. So remember these points and these are very important. Now what happens if I try to access the index that is not available? So let's say if you try to access names of 4, what will happen? So that will give an exception called array index out of bound exception. And this is very important, guys. So because this could be one of the interview question and also you often see this kind of exception while you working on a project. Whenever you try to access the index that is not available, then you get this error saying that array index out of bound exception. Because here we have only 4 values and we are trying to access the 5th value because the index starts from the 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So we don't have 4th index. So this is simple way of creating array, right? But not always we have the data at the time of creating an array. So usually we get the data runtime, right? So because we may receive the data from the server or somewhere else and then we assign the value. So how to do that? So for that, so just comment this, create array in another way also. String and names equal to new string of, and here we can pass the length. So here you can mention the number of values you would like to store in an array. So 5. The length of array is 5 now. How to store the values in this array? We have discussed that each value in array will be given an index, right? So here you can say names of 0. So at the first position I would like to store the value John at the second position. So names of 1, another value Krish. Just print S out, names of 3 or 4 whatever, and just run it. Vamsi. We got it, right? So this is another way of declaring an array and storing the values. And if you try to assign the value for index 5, then we get the error, because here the length of the array is 5 only, right? So if you try to assign the value at the index 5, we are going to get the error. So let's say test. Now IntelliJ IDEA showing us an error saying that array index is out of bounds, right? So even if you run it, we are going to get the error. We get the error saying that array index out of bounds exception, right? So this is invalid. Just remove that. Now let us iterate through an array and display the values of an array. You can use the for loop or for each loop. Let's use the for loop because most of people are familiar with for loop. So for int I equal to 0, and here we are going to use length property. So that's why I would like to use the for loop, so that I can show you how to use the length property. So length and then I plus plus. Cool. And after that S out. Since we are going to have only one statement, we don't require these curly brackets. And system out of println, here we say names of I, nothing but an index here, right? So I start with 0 and till I less than names dot length, which means till I less than the 5. So 4 is less than 5, right? There we go. Now we have John Smith, Chris, Mar, Alex, Vamsi. And what if you give just instead of less than, if you just give less than or equal to, what will happen? Save it and run it. So this gives like this because of this theme, and we get the error here because at the end, so here we used less than or equal to. So less than or equal to means it takes the 5 also into the consideration. So it will try to access names of 5, and whenever it try to access the index that is not available, we get the error index out of bounds error. These are the common mistakes beginners or even experienced people also will do. There are different kind of creating an array, but I don't want to confuse you as of now.